I think it's time we have the discussion here on the channel. Jadon Sancho. We all saw that performance the other night against PSG. He was simply incredible. So many of his actions were absolutely brilliant. His kind of genius work, his decisions on the ball were nearly perfect a lot of the time in that game. The question I think a lot of people are left with is why on earth can he not do it at Manchester United? Why is a Jadon Sancho wearing a yellow shirt such a different player? What is the reason behind this? Now, to try and get to the bottom of this, what I want to focus on is actually that performance the other night against PSG and some of the tactical roles of players around him, but also Sancho, and the effect it had on his performance. And what I want you guys to have in the back of your mind the whole time is, what would this situation look like if it was at Manchester United? And then towards the end of the video, I want to look at, could he actually still fit into the side tactically? That's basically the plan for today. In terms of Jadon Sancho in this particular game against PSG though, he played on the right hand side. You know, there has become this kind of belief at Manchester United that he can't really do that. I always felt that he should play this position when he first signed for the club, and he proved that the other night he can do it. Starting wide on the right hand side was his role on the pitch, but then most of the time, once he received the ball, he would then look to move inside into these sort of half spaces with plenty of runners around him, giving him those connection points in the team. And this is really reflected in these stats here. If you look on the far left, you can see his actions on the ball. You can see that his touches initially are out wide, but a lot of the time he was then looking to come in field. And it led to be honest, a quality performance. 99 touches from a winger. That kind of suggests the involvement he had in this game, and perhaps the confidence as well he had to go and get that much of the ball. 12 out of 17 dribbles. Ridiculous. 3 key passes. For me, he is one of the best creative passers on the planet. But why did it work tactically? That's what I want to get to the bottom of here. I'm not so fussed about the off-the-pitch stuff, although we will come to that as well. But firstly, I want to focus on this. Jadon Sancho on the ball, tactically. Why does he look so much better for Borussia Dortmund? It's because of how they set up. For example, take this situation here. Jadon Sancho receives the ball wide on the right-hand side. And you can see he is essentially 1 versus 1 up against Nuno Mendes at left-back. Now, of course, in this situation, he could look to take his man on, go on a dribble, go on a skillful run, try and pace the guy out wide. There's a few different things he could do. However, at Borussia Dortmund, that is not the expectancy for Jadon Sancho. Instead, you get people around him making runs off the ball, and we see that here. These two players make the run forward, opening up this massive space. Now, of course, there's nothing particularly special about this piece of play, right? It's just a bit of manipulation of the opposition, then you move inside into the open space. But would this happen at Manchester United? I'm not sure it would. I felt that United, a lot of the time, the responsibility here was to be aggressive in the 1 versus 1 duel out wide. So perhaps straight away that points to a different sort of tactical approach, which gets more from Jadon Sancho. Runners around him, taking away opposition players, giving him more space to operate in. In those areas he's brilliant. The other role for Jadon Sancho though, on the ball in this game, was a retention-based game. First touch, safe, keep the ball for your side. So here, he receives the ball on the right-hand side. He could have looked to go down the line, but instead his first touches are backwards towards his own goal, and he's trying to secure possession before then dribbling in field. Again, if you picture that at Manchester United, when our wingers get the ball out wide, there isn't so much of an expectancy to be calm and patient and come inside. They are used to carry the ball. Marcus Rashford in particular, for example, will often carry the ball down the left-hand side of the pitch. There is that expectancy at United that you get the ball forward quickly. At Dortmund, Sancho's role is different. It's about keeping the ball in this phase of play. And again, it gets him into these sorts of positions. You get runners around him who take players away. Take players away, create room for Jadon Sancho in the middle. That is exactly what he wants. And these runners around him is what he needs, these link players, because he does it really effectively in these sorts of situations. We've got another situation here on the right-hand side of the pitch. And again, he's going to take his first touch backwards towards his own goal. Now, in this situation here, I feel that at United, once again, there is this expectancy to get the ball forward as quickly as possible, quick, vertical, entertaining football, get the ball forward through the lines. But again, at Dortmund, that's not the case. Sancho isn't asked to play that job, or to play that role, sorry. Instead, it is about initially keeping the ball for his side, taking players on, keeping possession, before then releasing a pretty simple pass. Again, does that happen at United? I don't think it does. And what we can see is just a completely different tactical environment. We've got it again here. Jadon Sancho receives the ball between the lines. And the important thing here is that initially he appears to be 1 versus 1 up against his defender. But that is going to change because the right back is going to come flying forward to drag this man away from Jadon Sancho. Once again, creating room for Jadon Sancho and eventually getting him into a 2 versus 2 situation. So rather than leaving him 1 versus 1, where I think at times he can be a little bit weak, 2v2, he's one of the best in the world in my opinion. I love him in these situations, he's phenomenal. This is what I wanted when he first signed for the club. This sort of play. Dortmund know how to get the best out of him. It isn't to ask him to be incredibly direct, always carrying the ball forward, sprinting at fullbacks. That's not his best job. His best role is taking his time on the ball, protecting the ball, retaining the ball, but getting players around him, bring them into play. That is what Sancho is so good at. We've even got it on the left-hand side here. Now again, on this occasion, he could be incredibly aggressive on the ball, get at the fullback, look to try and make things happen. But he doesn't do that. He slowly carries the ball forward, he takes a few touches, but eventually he draws two players towards him. This is something which Jack Grealish done very effectively for Man City last season in their treble-winning campaign. This sort of play is really important because it creates room for someone else to receive the ball. Sancho does that very well. Again, at United though, he's probably given a different job. He's asked to be more direct. And that for me is the big difference. Don't get me wrong, Sancho can do this. He can do the direct play. On this occasion, he's going to throw in some skill, beat his man, get towards the byline and then put the ball into the box. He is capable of doing that. But in my opinion, it's not his biggest strength. I believe that with Jadon Sancho, his 1v1 dribbling should be used to supplement his game rather than being the main focus. At United, there is a lot of focus on 1v1 ability. Can you win 1v1 situations? You're going to be put up against an opponent. Can you beat them? And I don't think Sancho thrives with that. Again, we just saw there, occasionally he can do it. But when he's asked to do it all game long, I don't think it suits him. His game is about retention play, link play, keeping the ball for his side, and then bringing others into the game. Now, the perhaps slightly annoying thing for me personally is that I think United are getting to a point where we might be set up for him to do that perfectly.
So before we continue into the video, a quick shout out to today's video sponsor, JerseyFifa.com, the home of all of the greatest football kits. Whether that be the new latest releases or the old classic ones like this, Jersey FIFA has something for everyone, and now you can check it out yourself using the link in the description down below. And also make sure to use code JerseyFifa for 10% off when you order.
So I said just before the ad there that I'm almost a little bit annoyed at the whole situation because it feels like we're getting to a point where we could actually set up to play towards Jadon Sancho's strengths. So why does that annoy me? Well, because it almost feels like we're wasting him a little bit. Because Manchester United are moving in a direction where Sancho could be the perfect sort of player. Now, what makes me say this? It's the usage and Ten Hag's usage of minimum width in the final third. So, what is minimum width? We spoke about it the other week. There will be a video on the channel you can go check out. I'll leave it linked somewhere. Go watch it if you want to. But what United essentially do is use quite a lot of width in the first two phases of play. Now, the idea of this is to stretch the opposition and to pin the opposition. So if you stretch the pitch, you have wide wingers like this. You can stretch your opposition's defensive line, widen it, creating more spaces infield, and it gives you more options on the ball essentially. If Casemiro has the ball here, rather than being forced just to play one way, he can play left or he can play right. This is why United play with more width in the middle phase. Sancho can do that. Again, if we go back to that kind of touch map earlier, we can see that he was doing this job for Dortmund. Particularly in the middle phase, he was receiving the ball out wide. So Sancho is very capable of doing that. What he is more capable of doing though, is what United are now doing in the next phase of play, and again, that's that usage of minimum width, where, as we get towards the final third, if the ball is, let's say, on the left-hand side, the team is going to get to that side of the pitch. So Højlund's going to come over, Bruno Fernandes is going to come over, Kobbie Mainoo, Shaw. Again, imagine this is a fully fit United side, of course, which we haven't had the luxury of this season, but this is perhaps building towards next season. United these days get players over towards the ball. They apply minimum width. Imagine Sancho now thriving in this sort of space, where if the ball is to eventually come across to him, Dalot then overlaps. That's exactly what we were seeing in those Dortmund clips. So we're getting to a point at United where tactically, I think Sancho is going to start fitting in. Which again is why the whole situation frustrates me so much, because since he's been at the club, I don't think he has been given these circumstances. The ability to excel with the ball at his feet, to have players always around him, to have the license to sometimes underlap, sometimes overlap, bring variety to his game. I don't think he's had that luxury at any point in his time at the club. If the off-the-pitch matters could be solved, I feel as though tactically he could be the right winger we need. And I felt that we saw the proof in the Sheffield United game recently. Now if you quickly cast your mind back to my video on that Sheffield United game, you may immediately get an idea of what I'm talking about here. United are starting to use minimum width, but also, all season long actually, we've set up a lot of 2v2 situations out wide. And as I said previously, I think Sancho is one of the best in the world in these situations. The current United wingers aren't. So, let's take this example here. Down the left-hand side of the pitch, Garnacho's got the ball, and Dalot is making an effort to get forward to support him. The idea being that rather than it being a 1 versus 1 situation, we're going to try and turn it into a 2 versus 2 situation. Garnacho plays the run of Dalot, we get into the final third. The ball doesn't quite come off, but, you know, it's a good move. It works really well. We've got another situation here. Garnacho is in the final third, and it is currently a 1 versus 1 situation, like what we saw Sancho in earlier. United are now consciously making an effort to get someone in support to try and turn it into a 2v2 situation. Again, like Dortmund were doing earlier. And when this gets you into the final third, you get into really good positions. Currently, United have wingers though, which often make the wrong decision. Case in point, Garnacho here, he chooses to shoot. Again, if you were to put and drop Jadon Sancho into this position here, I'm confident that 9 times out of 10 he's going to make the right decision because this is where he thrives. This is the player we want to sign. So, it does beg the question. Is there a way back for Jadon Sancho? For me, it all comes with off-the-pitch stuff. There is clearly baggage there. Him and Ten Hag have an issue. I don't know how they solve it. Do they just go have a physical fight? I don't know. They need to try and solve the issue, in my opinion, because even if United don't keep Sancho, it gives us value to sell him on with, right? But the other question, if Sancho was to come back to Manchester United, could he thrive? Could he be the player that we wanted 2 years ago? Can he be that? I still think the answer is yes. I still think the answer is yes. In terms of out of possession, when it comes to pressing, he's not the most intense player, but he is intelligent with his pressing. I like that about him. You can't say that for all our players. Garnacho, Rashford, there's a few of them. Garnacho's intense, but not intelligent with the way that he presses. Even Bruno Fernandes isn't particularly intelligent. Sancho is. And then in possession, this idea of minimum width, 2 versus 2 situations, it's literally what Sancho wants. This is ultimately why the whole situation frustrates me so much. Because off the pitch, situations and just things, I guess, circumstances, are potentially stopping us from getting a world-class player on the football pitch. Now, I understand a lot of you will sit there and say, Sancho's never done it for us though, so why should we defend him? Why should we give him that opportunity? Look at this club for the past 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years. How often have we set up and actually got the best out of a player? We haven't. And Sancho has been someone who's really suffered because of that. We were a mess when he was playing under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. We had, you know, the end of Ole sort of thing. We then had Rangnick. We then had Ten Hag last season, who immediately brought a new right winger into the club. What did that do for Sancho's confidence? I'm not too sure. Can't have been great for him though. Sancho, does he deserve a chance? That's absolutely a debate you can have. You might feel that he's completely in the wrong, and I do understand that argument completely. If we're looking purely from a tactical point of view, and a footballer profile point of view, which is what I like to stick to here on the channel, if we stick purely to that, Sancho feels like he's a lot like what we need at the club. And that's where I'm going to leave it. You can make your decision on whether or not you think he should be forgiven, whether he should be given a second chance, whether him and Ten Hag should make up or not. You can have your conversation on that, just be respectful about it. But purely tactically, which is what AJ analysis is all about, purely tactically, I still think Sancho could thrive at this football club. Who knows though, will we ever see it? I'm not too sure. It feels like it might end in disappointment, to be honest, but let's wait and see. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Apart from that, we are finished for today though. So thank you guys for watching, hope you have enjoyed it. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.